Hey, my name is Dorian. In this video, you are learning a fundamental skill of realistic shading, and that is to separate light from shadow. How do we do that? In a Terminator study that looks something like this when it's finished. The main purpose is to indicate where the light stops. That is where the Terminator is. So I'm going to do that with you today. And I collected some objects around the house, and we'll take a look at which ones are more suited and which are less suited for this assignment. The best suited would probably be this cardboard box here. And by well suited, I mean easy, straightforward, where you can actually see the light side and the shadow side clearly, because all of that is diffuse reflection. The least suited or most difficult object of this selection here would be this guy, because not only is it a dark local value, which makes it really more difficult to see what's happening with the light on form, but also it's very shiny. So we get a lot of specular reflection and not so much diffuse reflection. And with light and shadow, what I'm interested in here is the diffuse reflection. So on the box, you see all of this is form light, and then the Terminator is right here. The sphere is also pretty good. There's a little bit of specular reflection, but that's fine. The light here is pretty soft. So the Terminator is soft, but you can still see this is form light area and this is form shadow area. The apple is also more difficult because it has local value changes and local color changes. But I think this would still be okay. We could draw the apple and find the Terminator right here. But in this video, I want to focus on how we draw the vase here. I'll remove the other objects. Oh, also, you should keep your objects pretty simple for this assignment. So here's something more complex. I would not recommend something like that because, you know, there's lots of local color changes, still pretty shiny, a lot of details in the handle. You can make your life difficult if you want and practice drawing something more complex, but I would recommend keep it simple, an object that has pretty simple structure and form. Okay, step one, find the Terminator. Here, that is pretty easy, right? The Terminator is right here. But there's some subtlety to this process of finding the Terminator. And I want to show you what happens when I move the light a little bit here. So you can see my shadow box set up, just two walls, a back wall, floor, and these are blocking the light. My lamp is right here, and I will pull that back and watch what happens to this plane right here as I pull the light towards me. Right? Now the Terminator has shifted from this edge down to this edge. And there's actually a test we can do that is really useful, and it's called the pencil test. By holding a pencil onto the object, casting a shadow, you can see wherever there's a cast shadow, this means you're looking at a form light area. The direct light from the light source is hitting here, it's hitting here, but down here we can't see the cast shadow. That means this part of the form is already in shadow. Right now it's pretty easy because that halftone is not very dark, barely a halftone. But if I push the light back again, let's switch the angle, pushing the light away from me, watch what happens to that plane. So right about there is an area where many beginners especially, but also more experienced artists, would get confused. And on a vase, it's not that important, but this happens on portraits or figure drawing. And there it really matters to identify what is actual shadow and what is just a dark halftone. Right now, this is a dark halftone. We can do the pencil test again. You see? Cast shadow is much darker than this halftone value. So for a Terminator study of this, I would draw the Terminator on this edge and ignore, for the beginning, that dark halftone plane. It's just a good way of working, good way of drawing that will make the rest of the drawing process easier, most likely. If you misattribute a dark halftone area like this as a shadow, in a portrait, for example, you risk making parts of the face that are just subtly shaded. You risk making those much too dark, too heavy, too aggressive, which is usually not a good thing. So for our purposes here, I'm going to draw this vase, and I'll make it a little bit easier by pulling the light forward again. Let's do something like that. Okay. Now, material-wise, I have three things. I have pencil, 2B in this case, doesn't really matter so much. I have an eraser, because I will need to find the proportions. And I have a colored pencil at the end to indicate with red where that Terminator is in the drawing. Paper here is very cheap, just printing paper. This is a quick sketch, not a in-depth drawing, so you can use any simple paper for that. All right. There are many ways of drawing, many ways you can approach this. Also for a quick drawing, the method maybe matters less. So let me show you two ways I would approach this maybe, just as quick preparatory sketches. One would be to really roughly indicate the general proportion. Like, that's enough, that's the kind of vase. And then find the Terminator and the cast shadow, and then give a tone, one tone to both of these. So yes, that's a very rough, just to show the approach. The other approach is to find the left, right, top and bottom first. So leftmost point would be here, rightmost point be this edge of the cast shadow. So I'll put that in, maybe down here. Topmost point is right there. So that's about here. This is more the classical academic method. And the bottommost point is right here, like this. And then, so this is the placement stage. Next would be big shapes. So there's a big shape in the contour, big shape in the cast shadow. There's biggest shape here. And then we're already kind of going to medium shapes, which would be this Terminator coming through here. Maybe something like that. And then again, just toning in form shadow and cast shadow simultaneously with the same value. So this is a bit slower, the academic method, but it's more accurate. The free sketch method is more fluid, more fast, but maybe you lose some accuracy. I'm sure there are many other ways, but for the Terminator study, I would recommend that you try one of these approaches, or both if you want. It is good to do several of these studies and not just one. So which one should I do? I guess I'm more used to the academic method, so let me do that. And this will be a bit awkward because I'm looking at my screen while I'm drawing. But leftmost point, again, that's over here. Rightmost point, I'll do this roughly in sight size. Rightmost point here. Topmost point, placing these with horizontal and vertical marks. And I know that I'm hoping, working toward the top of the vase shape being somewhere along here. It might be here, it might be here, but I'm saying height-wise, where am I going to place it? My best guess at the moment is right there. Then bottommost point, get here. that. And then big shapes. I'll squint for big shapes often. So I'm now going to the next phase of drawing after the placement stage. And the most visible, I guess, is the cast shadow. Something like this. Next most visible, like next biggest thing I can draw, be the top there. I'm tempted to draw the separation of the dark halftone right here, but when I squint, well, it's about the same. I was going to say there's more contrast on this edge, but it's similar because this is dark and this is dark. They're also similar to each other. But I think it's a good habit to draw the edge of the shadow family, or in other words, to draw the Terminator rather than drawing the separation between different halftone shapes, this being a darker halftone and this being a lighter halftone. So this line here is more useful to draw. I don't even need to draw the halftone separation. Probably I won't. So roughly it's here. I think I'm gonna run into trouble on this side, so let me add a few more pieces of information there. So now we're transitioning from big shapes to medium shapes, the next phase of a drawing. Still trying to keep it all as simplified straight lines. And I'll keep this pretty rough, like pretty simple and a little bit wrong. I'm not too worried about getting the proportions just perfect for this. Okay. Bit hard to visualize here. There's information missing. And I guess back here. Something like this. Yeah, I'm already getting too sucked into the precision, I think. So tell myself to let go. This is not about proportions, it's more about values. And so one skill you're learning with this is to see the shadow shape as a whole shape. Over here, I'm not drawing the bottom of the vase. Here, I'm drawing the edge, like the Terminator basically, which here is pretty hard to see. But yeah, I'm conscious of that. I'm drawing that top edge of the Terminator and not the bottom edge of the vase. I keep saying vase, it's actually a sake container that I received as a gift from a friend in Tokyo, with the purpose of it becoming an art project. So you might see this sake container appear in some other project in the future. We'll see, it's all pretty open-ended. Today we're using it for a Terminator study. So I can see that height of this shape compared over here. I feel like mine is a bit too tall. Just narrow it a bit. And then I think I'm done with proportions. I'm just going to tone in all my form shadow and cast shadow, which together make the shadow family. And I'm leaving my light family alone, like all of this. I ignore it. last look. Maybe this can be down a bit. I'm making an effort to keep the tone unified, like the same value throughout my shadow family. And I'm not drawing any local value changes, like what's happening up here on the vase or at the tip here. That is a local value change on the material. I don't care about that, I just care about light and shadow. Final step here would be with red or some color to indicate where that Terminator is. This is, after all, a Terminator study. That's it. Finished. All right, so now it's your turn. Go make a Terminator study, or more than one. If you're finished with module 1, then just do more Terminator studies with any spare time you have. This will really benefit you. I should mention that the most common mistake here is to render your drawing. That is not the point. Keep your drawing simple, especially the form light area. Use one tone for both your form shadow and your cast shadow. I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with. Enjoy!